All right, folks. Well, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune, 'cause it's time for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Reid, Bluffsterini in the home game and at Rec Poker Jim on Twitter. And I have the best freaking job in the world talking poker with my friends here on the Strategy Forums edition of the podcast every Monday night while we steal each other's chips in the free play money nightly home game. Now, I want to mention that we're brought to you by Running Aces. They're the official sponsor of the Rec Poker Podcast, and they're located less than an hour north of the Twin Cities in the beautiful state of Minnesota. Find out more about them at runaces.com. Now, most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization at Rec Poker, so we depend on support from our sponsors and from our premium members who take part in our training material and study opportunities for only $22 a month. Now, you can sign up for free. We've got a vast collection of free resources for new and intermediate poker players, and all it takes to join is an email address and a smile, although we do insist on both. But we think our premium membership at $22 a month is more than worth the cost of admission. But we're going to give you your first month for only $5 if you want to give us a try by using the code RecPoker at checkout. And if $5 sounds like a lot, buddy, I get it. Support your local food bank, but with a donation of any amount, and send us the receipt or the screenshot from that donation, and we'll happily credit you with a free month at Learn Pro Poker. So I hope you get a chance to support Rec Poker and support a local food bank as well and get involved that way. Now, they let me host the show on Mondays, but I'm just one man, and it takes a group, a gang, a crew to make all the magic happen around here. We call this group of wizards the Wrecking Crew. If you want to learn more about me or the rest of the Wrecking Crew here at Rec Poker, just go to rec.poker/crew, or you can listen up. You're going to meet two of our brightest lights here on the Forums edition in just one moment. Take it away, Mark.
Hello guys, I'm Mark Zhang, and once a month, every Thursday, the first Thursday of the month, I'm having a poker training session where we talk about tournaments and strategies.
And I'm Rob Washam. You can find me as Rabman50 just about everywhere. And on the first and third Wednesdays of every month, you can join me and a bunch of the premium members as we discuss the latest poker book.
That's right. And I hope you enjoy the conversation we're going to have tonight. This is picking up from last week. We were talking with Mark about sort of how he approaches the thought process of the game of poker, particularly putting our opponents in difficult positions, making our opponents feel uncomfortable, identifying spots where players are not balanced, and then applying pressure in those areas. If you're not a regular listener, Mark is a very accomplished poker pro. He plays a lot online, plays a lot of live tournaments as well. He's one of the coaches here on our Wrecking Crew. And if you enjoy the conversation that we're having with Mark, I'd encourage you to go to rec.poker/coaching, and you can find some opportunities to work with Mark and some of our other Wrecking Crew members for very affordable rates. And really, really, we don't let just anybody in the door here. You're going to have a really fun time working with some of our Wrecking Crew members. So I'm very excited to be welcoming Mark back to the show. We're going to kind of continue the conversation from last week and look at a couple other hands and kind of continue this conversation about finding weak spots in our opponent's ranges and applying that kind of pressure. So, Mark, take it away. We spoke about two hands in particular last week. Now we're looking at a different one, but it has a lot in common with those, I think.
All right, do you want me to take it away?
Yeah, please lead us
Okay,
in.
so the hand we are talking about, it happened actually at the same hand I had last week, the 4-3 of clubs. It's the same table. I'm in the same position, the big blind, and I have 4-3 of diamonds.
Okay.
So the hand goes like this, that the button opens and the small blind calls, and we have 4-3 of diamonds, and we call. The flop is king of spades, 10 of clubs, 9 of clubs. It goes check, small blind checks, I check, button checks. Turn is a jack of spade, small blind checks, I check, the button checks. The river is a deuce of hearts, and the small blind checks. And I've bet about 70% pot, and they both end up folding. So it's a very like quick hand, like nothing really to talk about. But if you actually if you think about their ranges and how they have to construct minimum difference frequency, um, it is interesting. I'll tell you why. So my value threshold on the river should be two pairs, like two pairs and straights. Okay.
And Mark, when the river comes, the board is King, Jack, 10, 9, 2 with two spades and two clubs. So it's a four straight. Anyone who has a queen has a straight. And there was no betting on the previous street, so we can't. All we can infer from that is what our opponents would have checked at every opportunity along the way. So you're saying
Sure.
your threshold for value betting would be two pair because there's four straight on the board?
So because we remove a lot of like straights from every layer because of their actions up to the river, like the small blind, I think he would start betting sometimes a queen on the turn, and at least on the river. It's very unlikely he has a queen. So if he doesn't have a queen and the button is the same, like he would bet the turn at least with a queen after getting double checked twice. So like you would want to get some value, and like what's the point of getting sneaky? And there are two flush draws. So
Right.
most people would just bet for protection for value. And um I think yeah, that's a very clear bet. I think most people would find it. So when straight is like a removed, like the next best hand would be sets, and I do not have any sets because I would three bet a lot of them pre-flop. So the next possible hand I could have would be well, I could have 7-8, I guess, but the next possible hand would be two pairs. So I need to bet some two pairs. And because I have four high and I'm bluffing, I will bluff like other hands, like 5-7 of hearts, 8-5 of hearts. And because I'm betting so many like trash hands, the new equilibrium would be that I need to bet some king jacks and some king tens to have somewhat of a balance in that line. So the other guy cannot pick me off with any pair, right?
Hmm.
Right.
Rob?
Would you have any two pairs that wouldn't bet on the turn?
Yes, because I believe that the button. So what happens if I bet two pairs on the turn, what am I getting called by? By a queen, or I'm getting raised? And now I'm in a dicey spot where I don't know if I'm ahead or if he's bluffing. So I would face the turn decision of like, does he have a straight again on the river? The second thing is I do think about the bottom of the button's range. The button's guy's name is Alan Castro for some reason. Like if the
The
guy on
Alan
the
Kessler?
Yeah, we don't know
no
if it's the Alan Kessler.
no
He
it's
likes
not.
buffaloes, though.
Yeah, it's some guy
It
from
could be. It
Taiwan.
could be.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so let's say the like I'll take a hand that the button finds as a natural check on the flop. I'll give you this hand. It's ace nine. Okay.
Okay. Bottom pair, top kicker.
Yeah, with a gut shot. If I
Yeah.
bet king 10 for a decent amount of sizing, he's not gonna call ace nine. So I don't really need to protect. Like it's a board of like you have it or you don't, because there are a lot of like medium equity hands like the flush draws, but the flush draws would start betting as button at some point, like either flush draws. The small blind could be trapping a queen twice because he's out of position against two people. That's very reasonable. But after the third check, so no, that's why I actually would not bet my two pairs on the turn. Like even if I have 10-9, it's not a guarantee that the run out is clean that I can bet on the river again. Like what if the river is an ace, a king, a jack, a queen, an eight? Like it's just
Right.
like a seven would make a straight too. Like they are not very clean runouts. They're like spades, clubs, like 10. Let's say I have 10-9 of hearts. You shouldn't bet it because the again, going back to when we get called, we're performing very bad. But if we check and we keep in the 0% equity hands like pocket fives from the button that he could bluff and we could check call, so we can check call, we actually gain some value.
Yep.
And that's why I would have to.
Even I can follow that. That's an excellent explanation. That makes sense even to me. Rob, did you want to jump in there?
No, that makes total sense. Something that
Okay.
struck me as you were talking about this hand is I play a lot of cash online, so it's not exactly the same. But what I find is if we get all the way down to the river and no one's bet yet, 9 times out of 10, it's two people with a couple of small pairs
Hmm.
Correct.
that are under pairs to the board. So I see a lot of fives, pairs of fives, pairs of sixes, pairs of fours, those little
Right.
pocket pairs that have a little bit of showdown value,
Mm-hmm.
but are performing very badly if they bet and get called.
Right.
So I think the small blind has a small pocket pair. It's the only reason he
I
would ever
mean,
spot.
I agree with you, and well, we'll get to that. That's very interesting, like what you said. I think also like the button could have pocket eights or pocket sevens and these
Yep.
type of
Yep.
stuff, these type of
Yep.
holdings, right? But
Yes.
if you think about my entire range, like there are some hands I'm gonna bet on the turn, which are like straights and some flushes, flush draws. So when I get to the river, what do I have as a bluff that check? If I bet every two pair on the river, what do I bluff on the river? That yeah, what else would I have as a bluff? I have to pick bluffs from somewhere, and that somewhere would be like just any the what we call in poker good suits. So I do not interact with the board at all. Which means I don't have any flush draw. Like it's a very natural bluff, like on the river because I have 0% pot share basically in that hand if I check. There's not a hand, I have the nut low, basically.
You do,
Yes, you do.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
definitely do.
those two things combined, having good removal in the sense of like I'm not interacting with the board. I don't have a nine, so I don't block their folding range with ace nine or something. And I don't have a spade, I don't have a club. Those may make good hands to bet, to bluff. Um, so what it comes down to when you actually bet, now the opposition has to defend, and the button has to come up with a minimum defense frequency on the river that defends this particular line. And the button and the small blind, they have shared responsibility to come up with that minimum defense frequency. So now, what the button needs to do, he has to start bluff raising some hands, right? To actually come up with the minimum defense frequency. Otherwise, you're not defending enough because, like you said, pocket eights, pocket sevens. What if he takes pocket eights and starts raising me because he's blocking 7-8 and queen 8? That would be a good defense. But who's doing that?
Right.
That's why I said in the first episode, real poker is really messy, right? But again, if he raises pocket eights on the river, he needs to have some value raises too. He cannot just
Right.
bluff raise everything. So now you
Yes.
need to find a hand that can beat my value hands that would raise on the river. And can you see how the unbalance now starts
Now
unfolding? Like,
there's because he didn't bet anywhere else,
well,
he doesn't have any of those hands on the river. Is that
well,
what you're
he could
saying?
have queen, ace, queen of spades, for example, maybe, or king, queen of clubs, right? King, queen of clubs is actually a very good hand to take this line. But what do most people do? They are unbalanced. They want to bet all their hands. So now, like,
Well, they want to
how you
start building a pot with a big hand. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, which I agree with most of the time. Like, I think with a good hand, you should bet. But then you can't bluff raise on the river because you don't have these hands anymore. Now, every time, w what happens with the 7-5 of diamonds hand of last week, if you start bluff raising all these hands, now I'm jamming my entire range because I know you don't have anything to call with. Right? That's exactly what happens with the guy that tried to raise me, and I know that you don't have enough to call, so I just rip it on you. Uh, I does anyone have a question about this hand? It's a very
Hmm.
simple hand, but like I think
No,
I explained
I,
my thoughts.
yeah, I like the way that you're talking about, the qualities of the hand, sort of like we talked about last week, the 4-3 of diamonds on King Jack 10-9-2 with no diamonds. You're not holding you're not holding cards that you'd like your opponent to have. So you're unblocking the kinds of hand you'd love for your if your opponent has a flush draw that missed, they're gonna fold. If your opponent has one of these like marginal strength hands and you're making a big bet, they're going to fold. So you don't want to have hands in your own, you don't want to have those cards in your hand that block the combos that they can have of those. So that's perfectly intuitive. And also having, very little showdown value, like you say, we've got literally the nut low here. Like choosing that,
Yes.
some of those bluffs are going to be the hands that don't have any other way to win. Um, so I think the really interesting thing that we're getting at here is what we can extrapolate about our opponent's range, and that in order for them to have the kind of hands on the river that they would need to have to defend against our action is very difficult, just because most of those hands would have played more aggressively on an earlier street. Am I
Right.
saying that? Am I getting close with that?
Yes. I mean, you are summing it up very nicely. Um, Also why I included this hand, it goes back to like when we defend from the big blind, we have to take some stabs. We have to be active and win pots without making the hand because you
Yes.
don't get to like we're in the big blind, we defend 80% of our range. We can't make hands with 80% of our range. Um, we just have to find some bluffs and find some raises. Um, yes, I think that
Hmm.
sums up pretty much a lot.
Yeah. So, there was one more hand you wanted to take a look at with us today. This was the
Mhm.
six of spades, four of spades hand. So
This is a really spicy one.
it's a really spicy one. All right, I love
Mm.
it.
This is like as far extreme of like an adjustment I can make if people are really unbalanced.
All right, I'm
Um,
excited.
all right, shall we start?
Yeah, yeah, let's jump in. So
Okay.
we actually get to play a hand with Mark in position here because we're on the button for this one. So
And
nice.
that shows you what position does.
Okay, cool.
We are playing, let me check, 2015. We're playing about 35 big blinds. 30, yeah, between 35 and 40. Okay, effective. And it's a bounty tournament.
Yeah,
And I cover him.
great.
So action starts as this that middle position opens and I have 6-4 spade on the button and I call. And everyone folds. Flop comes. the famous King Seven Deuce that we always talk about. King
We
of
do talk about
Diamonds,
that a lot.
the Seven of Hearts, and the Deuce of Hearts.
Okay.
He goes for 1/3, and here again, most people would just check out. They would be done with the
Yes.
hand because they're like, oh, we have nothing. Like we just fold. But which is actually the correct way to play. Okay. But how I exploit in this particular spot is I am aware that when people see that board and they have pocket eights, pocket fives, ace 10, spades, they would just see bet because people love see betting.
Plus,
Yeah,
because
that's right.
people that call in the bit in, out of position are actually you're in position. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised because shouldn't your range be tighter than 4-6? Is that a normal?
My range should be tighter, but because it's a bounty, I have a lot more trash in my
Okay.
range.
All right.
But because I have a lot of trash in my range, if you actually, I think, input it into a solver, he gets to bet more because I have a weaker range. But
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
um, the problem is that now he's betting, he still should have some hands that check. Okay.
Yes.
But from what I know, that population or and MDB mass data analysis, like what we found, like not what we found, but what comes out is that people love to see bet out of position. And now he goes for 2.2 big blinds into 6.8. And now I start messing with him and I make it 5.5 big blinds, which is a min click. And now imagine all these holdings like ace 10 offsuit, ace jack offsuit, ace 10 of spade. Like, what, where is he going to put these hands? He's probably like going to fold it. But again, I'm raising three big blinds into a pot of 10. You're supposed to defend really uncomfortably wide, what most people don't. So I already assumed he folds like the ace 10 type of holding.
And then this is already a profitable situation for you. Just in case this isn't
Right?
clear
Yes.
to our audience, like when players are over folding to the small sizes, they're just abandoning their equity in the hand, and then you get to receive that. So,
Yes. And it starts with them c betting, right? He could have checked,
yes,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a spot where you're saying like population C bets too widely, too frequently. And
Yes. And they
so
get away with it because people don't do the stuff I do,
yes, that's
How
right.
about
That's right.
how about if he's c betting, what value hands is he c betting
well,
versus how much of his, I mean, most of his range is not value. So
Right.
that's a problem.
when he's c betting, he's probably c betting a lot more non-value hands than he is value hands because a lot of the value hands have incentive to actually check. Is that right? I mean, am I
Okay, so
thinking right?
his value betting is probably like deuces, sevens, ace, king, king, queen, king, jack, right? But then where does he put the queen, jack of clubs? Where does he put that in? Where does he put the pocket nines? Like where do those hands go? They have to go somewhere. Where are they, right? Like he he raises all of these hands pre-flop, like ace five of spade, right? He raises that pre-flop. Where does he
Hmm.
put that on the flop? Into c betting range or in the checking range? They have to be somewhere. I'm gonna find out where, right? And I'm gonna find out where by just making that small raise. Where like, what are you gonna do with queen jack of clubs? I like to see that. Like
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
ace 10 of spade, with ace 9 of spade, ace 8 of spade. Like there's so many hands that like, well, what are we doing, buddy?
I like it.
Anyways,
Like
so
it.
he goes for the call, which like fine. The turns comes a three of diamonds. So remember our last conversation. By the way, and he checks to me. So the la th this hand. has particularly good properties because it does not interact with the board again. Like a hand that I don't want to have would be ace four of diamonds. Because if
Hmm.
I bet and get shoved on, you get good odds to call, but you're behind. So this is a hand I do not mind bet folding. I have 0% equity, like 0 to 5% equity in that hand. Like I have a bad gut shot, and that's it.
And this is again for our audience. This is we're holding 6 4 of spades on the button. The board is king of diamonds, two of hearts, seven of hearts, three of diamonds. So
All red,
all
right?
right, yes,
Yes.
yes.
So he
Now,
he
now,
checks.
Mark, some of our listeners might say, "Well, Mark, how can you say you're not intersecting with the board when if like a five comes, that completes a gut shot for you?" And I
Right,
think what you're going to say is that because of the position of the opening player, like just the you're not blocking the combos that they're likely to have in their hand, given that they opened from there. They're not going to have a lot of the
right,
straight's not really relevant to their hand strength. Am I correct?
right. Because he does not bet call on the flop with any hand that has a six of spade in his holding. Like
Right.
um, maybe king six of spade could be one, but like most what he's getting to the turn with is flush draws because I don't have the flush draw.
Hmm.
And my idea was actually if the flush draw breaks off, it's more likely he has ace 10 of diamonds, ace 10 of hearts, like these type of hands, right? Um, so he has about 25 big blinds behind. The pot is 18 big blinds. Okay. And I go for half pot.
Hmm.
And here's where the manipulation of the range starts happening. Put yourself in the villain's shoes and give yourself king queen. What are we gonna do? With two flush draws
Right.
out there and I bet half pot.
Yeah,
So
so at that point we've got like a 2x bet
we have
behind. So
70% pot behind basically.
yeah. Yeah, so I think we're probably shoving a lot of those
Right?
hands.
You'd have, yeah,
What
yeah, both
yeah,
kings.
okay. What like so everyone agrees if we have value we just shove,
Right.
right? We want to protect, which is correct, don't get me wrong.
Yes, yes.
But
So when we just call, what does that
against
say about our
against a
range? Yeah.
crafty villain on the button, you need to have to cover that check call line when the flusher breaks, correct?
Right.
Because
Right.
otherwise you have nothing to call with again. Because in that on the turn is where the manipulation happens, where if I force you to reveal what you have, because if you have top pair, you're gonna protection shove. If you have top set, you're gonna protection shove, which top set should be a great call actually, because top set has 95% against my hand. Anyways, what most people do, they shove. So now on the river, it becomes really spicy. It comes with Jack of Diamonds,
Mm.
and he goes for 1 6 pot.
That's pretty small.
Hmm. It's about a quarter
And
of his stack too.
Yeah. Well, it has to be
yes,
small because he's going to be chips left.
Yeah.
yes. And now I send it, put him in the bin.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my question again is, I would like to see you defend this frequency, like this minimum
Right.
defense frequency. I like you to show me a hand that takes this line that can call the river.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I actually was gonna give up. Because, like I said, my hand has good properties of unblocking the two flush draws. So if either one of them breaks off, I'm happily shoving it because I'm unblocking it. But now one of them gets there. But now he takes a line where I just don't think it's a flush. What flush is it? Are you gonna? I think most people are going to donk jam the flush or check
Right.
call. Like if you have ace 10 of diamonds, are you really gonna bet five big blinds? aren't you going to let me like just send it in,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
So now it's a holding, it's a range that almost always folds the river. Just because how unprotected of like top pairs and nutted hands he has on the turn, combined with the river donk. Like he has to have a hand like ace seven of diamonds that takes this line or ace deuce of diamonds.
Hmm.
And it's just like sure you can have these two combos, but what about the rest of all your hands that you get there with? What are you
And
gonna
Mark,
call?
and Mark, you're singling out the ace deuce of diamonds and the ace seven of diamonds because that would have given them one pair on the flop. Uh,
Yes, that
and
can
then
actually
they,
find some continuous. That would
and
actually
then
play reasonable this line, but then you still have to find the 1/6 lead on the river.
right, right, right. Yeah.
Is that some sort of blocking bet with an ace high hand or a seven or something like that?
Well,
Even
it's
a
really hard
king.
to actually because people are like coming up with their own strategies, right? They want to play street poker, and that's how you punish people that craft their own strategies because I will find the line that you are not balanced in.
Mm.
Like
Hmm.
they're trying to play tricky or play like like we said the other week, like check call with eight high on the turn and then donk with the straight gets there. You want to be like tricky, but like I'm gonna find out. Have a good night.
I like the way you talked about contorting or manipulating your opponent's range. This is something that I first encountered listening to the Thinking Poker podcast, Andrew Brookus and Nate Mavis like 10 years ago. Um, the idea of using bet sizing to contort your opponent's range. And it's true. When you choose certain sizings, you can really eliminate a lot of holdings from your opponent's range when they don't take a certain action. Like you're pointing out, like a lot of the strong hands are going to respond to this size bet by raising. And so when our opponent does not raise, we can fairly confidently uh, extrapolate from that that the range doesn't contain a lot of those holdings.
Yes, I think it's mostly because he does not think about poker like that. Like if I was in his shoes and I have top set, I would pick this hand to check call. Or if even if I have aces with the ace of diamonds and ace of hearts,
Hmm.
something like this, I would protect that line because I know it's important to protect that line. But to most people, they don't think about poker like
Hmm.
that. Like I care about well, that's actually what GTO is about. You're supposed to be protected in every line, and
Hmm.
once you start exploiting, you're opening yourself up to counter exploits like these.
Yeah, and so I think like we talk about GTO in terms of playing defense from the point
Yeah,
of view that you only really need to employ this kind of balance against savvy thinking players like yourself who are going to find these exceptional areas to put us in the blender. Um, it sounds like based on talking to you over the last couple of weeks, you would be less concerned about being, defensively balanced, playing against less experienced opponents who aren't gonna find these counterintuitive like bluff spots. Is that fair?
exactly. Like I against recreationists, if I know there's a certain run out where he never folds, I'll just I'll pick a shopping size. That's what I call it.
A
A
shopping
shopping bag
size?
size. It feels like shopping. Like I just bet whatever I want to get called with for.
Yes, yes, okay. I
Yes.
like it.
And
I like
then
it.
like for other situations where I know that they're going to fold range, like the 4-3 of clubs we had the other week, I'll just go all in because he can never call. Like he doesn't
Hmm.
call.
Hmm.
It's like these nodes where I can exploit just because I know what they are supposed to do and what they are not doing, and just by them creating a huge unbalance on like every street except preflop or
So how often like anecdotally, this is not scientifically, but just anecdotally, like how often does it happen where you're like, okay, I'm in this spot, I've manipulated my opponent's range, here comes the bluff, and then they like surprise you
Mhm.
and end up with, so is it like, oh, I didn't think they'd have that combo, or I thought they would have that combo, but they'd fold it, or like what are the ways that this goes wrong?
Okay, so yes, of course it goes wrong, but that's when I'm really pushing it. Like I'm really out there. Like it's like I try so hard that it looks like a whale or fishy and bad. That's how I you would get caught. But if I stay within like reasonable assumptions, it almost never happens. Yes, there's an oddball where I don't think it's unlikely he would show up with an A7 of diamonds,
Mhm.
but it's one combo.
You
You
just,
still
it's,
have to defend the other
yes.
99% of your range. And as long as a person doesn't show up with enough defense to reach the minimum defense, all your plays become profitable because he can't reach it.
Yep. Yep. I think that's a key point there. Rob, did you have something?
No, no, I was about to sneeze, so
Oh, okay, good man.
I'm trying to stop
Yeah.
myself.
Because I do want to reinforce to our audience, because these are, like a lot of poker plays, they're not they don't have to work every time. They just have to, in the long run, work frequently enough given the price that you're setting for it. And that's how we like, yeah, please.
So sometimes when I bluff it off and they actually ends up having a seven of diamonds, I'm like, how unlucky am I that
Right.
I get like the run out dictates that I have a bluff and they just have this one combo. I actually feel I'm running bad. That's actually how I think. I'm running so bad he actually has a seven of diamonds. Like that's how I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when you're because again, I think I mentioned this last week or maybe it was earlier this week in the episode. When you are actually envisioning the entire range, when you're because like you say, every combo that enters the hand finishes the hand. Does it finish as a
Yes, it
fold?
has to be
Does it?
somewhere.
It has to go somewhere.
Right.
So when you are accounting for the entire range, it's that's the missing piece. If you're listening to this at home and you're like, how do these guys pull this off? And like how do they feel that their opponents are in a weak spot? It's because they're envisioning the entire range of hands that our opponents are bringing in there. And that's a very let me ask you that, Mark. How can people work on that? Because that feels like a skill that is crucial in order to even
Well,
have these kind of conversations.
Well, I think part of it comes from like studying, also like just understanding how a certain spot is being played. Um, and then I think what most recreationists where they lack is they care too much about protection against a good player.
Hmm.
Like if you like even if a good player defends from the big blind, he's supposed to have 4-3 of diamonds and 4-3 of clubs. He's going to find a bluff somewhere. You just have to give him rope. But at the same time, you cannot check your top range just in hopes he has that 4-3.
Hmm.
Like that's not how poker works. You're supposed to extract value from your good hands, and you're supposed to find the bluff catchers down the line somewhere on the turn or on the river. And he's gonna bluff. But now what people are doing is they check their top pairs and they do some like they craft their own strategy, and that results in a not in a negative like you don't lose EV in that spot, but over a year you're gonna lose EV because
Hmm.
you rely on me having that certain combo that actually bluffs on that run out, and you obviously that's what actually GTO is like. GTO finds, oh, I have this combo and this hand is a good bluff on this run out. So of course we don't want to bluff a mixed flush draw. That's like when I would get caught if I'm really out there, right? That's what I meant. So I think just care less about protecting your hand and actually think about like where is a certain type of holding going? Where's the 4-3 of clubs
Hmm.
in the big blind going? Like where does he put that? Is it in the turn stabbing range? Is it like where does it belong to? Because if I have value, like every recreational player, I'm gonna find it, right? But you have to be crafty enough to find the bluffs.
Yes. Yeah. That's
I
the key.
speaking of like weak ranges, I have another interesting hand, just a quick one that I played 2 days ago in a tournament.
Cool.
Big blind is 4,000, and a middle position player, he's quite active. He raises to 8,000, and I call in the button with ace 10 of clubs, and the flop comes queen, queen 5 rainbow. He goes for 7,000. I call having backed because rainbow defense frequency, backdoor flush, backdoor straight, um, overcards to the 5. The turn is a deuce of hearts, now bringing 5 deuce in hearts out there.
Mm.
Okay. He checks, and I bet 5K. The big one is 4K, and he folds. You see
Right.
how I found out the trash? Like I found out he had trash.
Hmm.
Like just by betting that 1 point, it's not even 1.5 big ones. I guess it is 1.5 big ones.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like
125.
yeah, but I had a couple of recreational players at the table. They were looking at the hand like, What's going on? Like what's happening?" Right? Like, why is he betting one big blind? Why is he the other guy just folding for one big blind? And that's how another example of how people love to see bet out of position and how it
Hmm.
creates an imbalance on the turn that he can't even defend for one big blind.
Right. Yes.
Like, it has to be such a trash hand, it can't even continue.
And so is that something that you're going to see on those kind of boards like Queen Queen 2 or Queen Queen 5 or like monotone flops or just boards that are difficult to hit that people are going to see bet
Well,
too
this was a
frequently?
rainbow board, right?
Yes.
So yeah, like my question is what's he doing with the king jack offsuits, the jack 10 suited, the ace 8 of spade?
Hmm.
Because I could get value with ace 10 of clubs against ace 8 of spade, right? Are you like where is he going? Is he going for the bet line or the bet check raise line? Where is it?
Hmm. Yeah. Where are those
Where
where
is
are
it,
those
buddy?
hands going?
Yeah, where's the 9-8 of spade? Where's that? Where is it?
Yeah.
I could check, of course, and then like, but I feel like if I bet, I could deny some equity of 9-8, which has like 6 cards. So yeah.
Hmm.
But hand is a good example just to show that people have those trash hands. Like I ended up having ace 10 of spade, but what if I have 9-8 of hearts? What if I bet
Yeah.
one big one and I get you to fold jack 10?
Right.
Right? Like
No.
they all have these hands. It's just like just playing enough, I guess, and finding out like where does preparation put all these hands that don't connect to the board. Because it is hard to connect to make a pair.
Yes. Yes, it is. Well, this is great. I mean, I always enjoyed talking poker with you, Mark. Listeners will know, Mark's a regular guest here on the Forums edition. And I encourage our members, check out the office hours, the first Thursday of every month. Mark brings hands and we look at spots in a solver and he applies this fantastic poker brain of his to the problems that plague our audience and our membership recreational players around the world. So Mark, is there anything else that you want to sort of comment on about this
Uh,
concept or about these spots?
no, I think we've said a lot. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of value to be had in that podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say for 2 episodes of a free podcast, I think people are getting their money's worth for the last couple of weeks for sure. If you want, and I'll just remind again, if folks go to rec.poker/coaching, You can find opportunities to work with Mark and some of our other RecCing Crew members. And I'll say again, if this stuff sounds complicated to you, that makes sense. Like this is pretty sophisticated relative to a lot of the study material that we often bring onto the show. But I just want you to understand, poker is a game that rewards study. And no matter what level of player you're at, no matter how experienced or inexperienced you are, you will benefit from speaking to a coach, a mentor, some peers. Take that next step and start speaking intelligently about poker with your friends, with RecPoker members, on our Discord, in our forums. Take a leap, get some coaching, get some one-on-one coaching from someone who's much, much better at poker than you are. You might not make that investment back the next week at the local daily, but you're going to advance your knowledge of this game by leaps and bounds compared to your ability to just pick it up on your own, reading books, listening to podcasts, watching videos, playing. Get help. Get help from people that can help you. I really want to encourage people. I wish I'd done it earlier. I say it all the time. I'm sure a lot of folks here as well wish they'd done it earlier, just because you could be operating at a higher level faster. You could be spending more of your life being the kind of accomplished poker player like Mark and not just twiddling your thumbs trying to keep up like me. Get involved, get some coaching, invest in yourself. And I'd recommend you do it at rec.poker/coaching. Find some friendly faces here to help you take that next step. Mark, such a pleasure. I understand we're both going to be in Vegas come December, so I'm going to get a chance to buy you a couple dinners and soak up some more knowledge, I hope. Thank you so
Looking
much.
forward.
Oh yeah, man. Book it. Book it. And like I say, folks, if you enjoy this, get out there on the first Thursday of every month and take advantage of Mark's office hours. And like I say, Rob's got the book study, Chris has the deep dive, Taylor's on stream, Kim's got her hand history review groups. There's lots of ways to get involved with different RecCing Crew members. So find a voice that works for you. All right. Well, without any further ado, I guess I'll thank the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino for their sponsorship and support. Mark Zhang, fantastic stuff today, man. That was awesome. Rob Washam, love having you in the booth here as always. Thanks to our audience at home. Thanks to all of you. We couldn't do it without you. So have a great week, everybody. See you next time on the RecPoker Podcast.